Greetings from my tub. I'm in here getting 5% cash back when I pay in full with PayPal. No fees, no interest. Make the most of your money this holiday with PayPal. Save the offer in the app.
Ends 12/31. See paypal.com/promo terms. Points can be redeemed for cash and more. Pay in for subject to terms and approval. PayPal link at NMLS 910457.
From Curtis 50 Cent Jackson.
Tommy back.
Yeah, I am.
And the executive producers of Power.
There's levels to this game.
Comes the final season of Force.
We're going to have to be careful about our next move.
We get what we can now and take the rest later. This is going to be the battle of our life. It's go time.
This is a dangerous life that I choose to be in with you.
Force.
Never bet against me because I'm always winning.
Premieres November 7th, only on Stars and the Stars app.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you.
Ooh.
Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. The final whistle has just gone. Tottenham Hotspur 0, Chelsea 1. Chelsea win at Tottenham yet again. 6 wins out of 7 since Spurs moved to the new stadium. It's just incredible. Fireworks in the background here, and yeah, it feels like a fireworks night, doesn't it, in terms of the way that Chelsea played. Oh, I'm buzzing. I have to say, I'm absolutely buzzing after that. I really was worried about the game today. I think probably sort of haunted by the game against Sunderland, and then, to be fair, that second half against Wolves in midweek, where really I kind of came away feeling like we lost the game and just had a bad feeling. I don't know why. All day I've just been thinking, oh, I've got a weird one about today. But to be fair, Chelsea turned up and put in one of those performances that we're starting to see now under Maresca. When it's a big game, it kind of started a little bit at the end of last season, but certainly that big PSG performance in the summer that I often hark back to. But it kind of seems to be that setup that we see that Maresca used against PSG. We see it time and time again, used it against Liverpool, slightly tweaked with Gusto playing midfield that time, but we were back to it today. And almost immediately, as soon as the game started, you're like, okay, yeah, Chelsea are on it today. We're set up, we're keeping the ball really well. And I thought, to be fair, we were pretty much flawless. And I don't think many people had a 1-0 on the bingo card. I certainly didn't. I was so worried that we would concede from a set piece and Spurs would do us on one of those corners or long throws, but we dealt with them really well, didn't we? All through the game. So much to talk about. Spurs were dreadful. Let's also be fair. I think it might be one of the worst Spurs performances I can remember against Chelsea in memory. They were woeful, and it was almost bizarre watching it, actually. You kind of were waiting for this sort of flurry of attacks and things to happen, but it was just, they just kept booting the ball through to us, and it was just going through to Sanchez almost every time. You really felt like the only way they would score would be from a corner or something like that. And actually, the longer the game went on, the more that Chelsea missed chances, you were just sort of fearing the worst, weren't you? Not exaggerating when I say that could have been, and probably should have been, 4 or 5-0. It was. We had that many good chances. The Gittins one at the end. I mean, not to pick on him because we missed. There are plenty others that missed chances, but when he blazes that one over, and then obviously João Pedro has one within a minute, and he has a great chance to make it 2-0. You're sort of thinking, oh no, is it going to be one of those days? But no, it really wasn't. And as much as Spurs were bad, I really thought we defended very, very well. And it's not often I've been able to say that this season. Even when we have been winning games, I think even when we've been getting clean sheets, to be fair, there's been a fair amount of luck in those games, and things have gone our way. The bounce has gone our way, various other things. Actually, today we were flawless at the back. I might go through a few more of the players in detail later. That I just wanted to pick out a couple of players now, and the first one has to be Rob Sanchez. No player got more stick on this podcast than him last season. He was a constant worry for me. It was a constant worry for Joe. And to be fair, I think for a lot of Chelsea fans that was the case. I feel different about him now. I trust him. That's the only thing I can say. I don't feel nervous about him. When he's got the ball at his feet, he's making much better decisions. He's going longer when he needs to. His short passing has been generally very good as well. And in a game like today, where you were really needing him to step up from those corners and throws and crosses coming in, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And he was absolutely flawless on every single one of those long balls that came in. It was really interesting watching how Chelsea were defending the corners, because they basically were keeping, I guess, the two best headers of the ball in Fofana and Chalobah basically free. They were like spare men to just go and attack the ball. And the remit was obviously you two go and win the ball. Sanchez, anything anywhere near you, be aggressive and come and claim it. And the rest of the guys, you basically ruck with players who were generally bigger than them and stop them trying to get clear heads on the ball. And I thought it worked brilliantly, and we defended it really well. It was interesting. The closest Spurs actually got probably the whole game from any set piece was the first one they got, where Porro, I think, went for goal, trying to catch Sanchez out. Chalobah did really well, but other than that, we did really well on them. And I talked on the last episode about Chelsea needing to come up with a plan for these set pieces. What are we going to do differently because of the personnel issues? And certainly it looks like they have come up with a plan, because that was clearly the plan on corners, and I thought it worked really well. And I love seeing a bit of innovation. And what we did on the long throws was brilliant to see, where every time Spurs got a long throw, they would put it in the box. We basically immediately pounced with three men going up. It was interesting they were going up quite late. It was like Garnacho, Pedro Neto and one other would basically sprint forward, and suddenly Spurs were sort of panicking, thinking, right, we can't leave too many players up. And for those of a certain vintage, you'll remember Jose's first season back in 04-05, he used to do exactly the same thing. For corners, he'd leave up Doff and Robben and often one other. And it just basically meant that the opposition couldn't put anywhere near as many players in the box, and Chelsea were just so much more solid for it. And I thought it was really good to see Maresca and the team come up with something and not just sort of play on hope and prayers, but actually have a plan. I thought that worked really well. And to be fair, Chelsea nearly got in a couple of times on the counter-attack. We looked really dangerous. And again, on another day, could easily have had 2 or 3 from that. So many players that you could mention in terms of individual performances as well. The boys in the midfield, though, Enzo Fernandez was brilliant. Really unlucky not to pick up a goal. I think he'll be disappointed with this header in the second half, but really unlucky not to pick up an assist or 2 as well. A couple of great passes, just let down with the finishes on the day, but I thought he was brilliant. You can see he really gets what these games mean, doesn't he? He's just got that sort of personality and character, and kind of leads from the front in everything. And his partner in crime, Caicedo, I mean, what a player he is. I mean, what are we watching with this guy in midfield? I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. The way he hunted for that goal, that first goal, and basically got 3 challenges in the space of 30 seconds was just absolutely brilliant. You kind of run out of superlatives, don't you, for his performances and what he does on the pitch for Chelsea. He is an absolute mountain in there, and a great moment for João Pedro, who needed that sort of performance. I thought it was much more like the João Pedro that started his Chelsea career. It was a really good finish. Obviously, he missed a couple of others, could have had a hat-trick today easily, but he comes out with the winning goal against Spurs, which I think will do do wonders for him and give him hopefully a world of confidence and everything else. So yeah, but generally I thought João Pedro was excellent. I won't pick out any others right now because I think I could do with doing a bit more thinking about how we played generally, but I wanted to get a voice note in straight after the game, give my feelings, and yeah, I've got a big smile on my face. Let's just say that. Really happy with how we played. Showed another side of us that I maybe was concerned we didn't have. And do you know what? A 1-0 win at Spurs was pretty good. And up to 4th in the league as it stands, which is, a lot more reasonable, isn't it? So come on, you Chelsea, up you Blues, and over to you, Joe.
What a lovely way to spend a Saturday compared to the last one we just had. Sunderland at home was painful for many, many, many reasons, but today certainly went some way to repaying that poor performance and display that we had last weekend. I think, firstly, I want to start with the long throws and the long balls. Chris touched upon it there on his voice note, and it was really nice to see those slight tweaks and changes that Chelsea made. There was one absolute howler from Fofana in the second half where he jumps for a ball and the ball still goes 10 yards over his head, which I thought was actually just comical. I mean, it was laughable. It was the sort of thing you see a Sunday morning player do playing in his local park. Luckily, the ball fell to Caicedo, who didn't expect it to come to him, and he just sort of spooned it away, as it were. But I liked the way that Chelsea dealt with that situation today. Now, Chris also touched upon that Spurs were very, very poor. Now, I completely agree with that. They were shockingly poor. I mean, I'm struggling to find out why they've got so many points based on that performance today. But then we had a Sunderland one last week. The Premier League is the Premier League at the moment. It's all over the place. But what I will say is this. Now, Chelsea haven't gone down the road of launching the ball into the box very often, if at all, from corners or long throws. And I've got to say, I'm finding the football in the Premier League really, really drab at the moment. Now, let's just say today that Spurs launch a ball into the box with an hour gone and it ricochets off somebody and they pump it in the net. I would suggest that the first 59 minutes would have been completely forgotten about and the media would have concentrated on that Chelsea have conceded from a long throw. They would have said what a great long throw it was and what a great flick on it was or something. And I would argue that the standard of football in the Premier League at the moment is very poor. The fact that Spurs could have got away with an equaliser today by just launching it into the box whilst playing absolutely zero football. I mean, the way they just kept pumping the ball down the middle, like Chris said, with Rob Sanchez just coming out and just collecting every single ball in his midriff, sort of on the edge of his own box. I just thought it was bad. It was just really bad. And they're not the only team to have come to Chelsea, or sorry, in this case, played at home, but teams that have come to the bridge and done that to us. I've looked at them and thought, you're not very good, but you've nicked a goal through sheer luck, really. But all the football that we used to see in the Premier League and what we were used to seeing a few years ago is just completely gone out the window for this long throw set piece nonsense. I'm finding it hard to watch. I'm finding, part of me thinks, should Chelsea do it? Because, if you can't beat them, join them type of a thing. But in a weird way, Maresca was asked about this last week and he said that he might be tempted to do something like that, but said he wouldn't be doing it. He made the joke that if he was going to start doing long throws, then he may as well go and buy a Rory Delap and sell Liam, which I thought was quite interesting and quite a funny thing to say. Chelsea clearly play a lot of short corners. They play their throw-ins short. They keep the ball because that's the type of player that we have. I think if we started launching it into the box, I don't think we have that physical presence. João Pedro possibly would win the odd flick on. Maybe Liam Delap when he plays would do that, but barring them two, we're quite a small side, I would say, overall. And I'm finding this Premier League campaign very, very difficult. Arsenal were the ones that sort of were the kings of it last season, and lots of teams I think have just copied and followed. And some are having more success than others. But overall, I just think that watching those two teams play today, there was only ever one team that wanted to play football and one team that were just hoping to score a goal. And yeah, Chris is quite right. Chelsea could have scored 4 or 5 goals today. They were very good, clear-cut chances. But that's the price you pay when you don't take your chances. If you're gonna leave the opposition with a chance to sling the ball in the box with 5 minutes to go, then that's down to you. But I must say, I thought the game as a whole, particularly from the Spurs perspective, was terrible, and their fans were booing like mad. I mean, really, from about 70 minutes onwards, because they were just getting so frustrated with Chelsea, basically dominating the game. And yeah, it's called 3 Point Lane for a reason. Obviously, White Hart Lane being the reason why it was called that. They've obviously moved to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but things have continued in the same vein, and that's Chelsea's 37th win now in the Premier League alone against Spurs, when they've only had, I think, 7 in reply, which is absolutely remarkable. And there's been, I think, several draws, but there is no game in the world that is played like this. It's mad how many games Chelsea have beaten Spurs in now. And yeah, I like Chris, I was thinking at some point this is going to swing in their favour, but I mean, based on today's performance, they are just so nervous when they play Chelsea. They just can't seem to get out. We do live in their head rent-free. It is just mad how they can't seem to put any kind of winning run together against us, which is scary. But I sort of stopped short of making a prediction this week, because I thought I'm not even going to go down that road. And yeah, luckily that I didn't, and we've come up trumps, which is great. As for the game itself, I think that the back four and the goalkeeper deserve a huge amount of credit. I mean, that's probably the best performance we've had, I would suggest, in the league all year at the back. Spurs didn't offer much going forward, it has to be said, but is that because Chelsea did defend well? I thought that Trev Chalobah was fantastic. I think he really didn't put a foot wrong today. And alongside him, credit where it's due, Wesley Fofana, the man who's probably got more speeding points on his driving licence than he has appearances for the club, really did put in a first-class performance today. I thought those two together were wonderful. If Fofana can continue to play this well, it's only one game, of course, but if he can continue to play this well, then with the likes of Josh Ashampong there too, we have got good players in that position when they're fit. The trouble with Chelsea is they're never fit enough. I hated the very second the 88th minute clicked over and Fofana's number was pulled up for Tosin. I absolutely screamed. I was like, what are we doing? They haven't put a foot wrong all day long. Fofana is clearly not injured. Why are we risking upsetting the middle of the defence? I'm telling you now, that will cost you goals, and I don't know why we keep doing it. But yet again, Tosin comes on with 2 minutes plus injury time, so he plays 8 minutes of the game. He's not warmed up. He's not ready to go, as it were. As it turned out, Tosin won a few headers and he didn't play that badly. But I just didn't understand that decision at all, I've got to say, particularly when they played so well together. But that's another story. I felt as though sort of Gusto and Cucurella played very, very well. I mean, we've said it before, but Cucurella now is utterly world class. He's a wind-up merchant, we know that. If he was playing against me, I'd hate every bone in his body, quite frankly. But as a Chelsea player, he knows what he's doing. Equally on the ball, he's remarkable. His ability now is through the roof. He's not someone that you're questioning anymore. He's without doubt, he's up there, top 2-3 left backs in the world. There's no question. He's wonderful, and I think Gusto had a decent game too. Reece James filled in here and there in that position. Reece in midfield today I thought was great too. I think he was a little bit slow sometimes. He's definitely lost a yard of pace. There's no doubt about it in my mind. He's definitely not the player he was. Obviously at fullback he does get a little bit more time on the ball. When you play centrally, not used to playing there very often, you will get caught in the ball sometimes, which he did, particularly in the first half. But I think overall Reece was decent. I think same Malo Gusto found himself in some really good positions. Once again, the use of Gusto over some other players is a sign that Maresca seems to really like him. There's talk of him getting a new contract very soon. That's very close to being signed. I think Chris and I are a little bit unsure on that, but okay, the club are the club and they're doing what they're doing. In midfield, I thought that Enzo was remarkable. I think we've seen Caicedo. We speak about him a lot, and he was brilliant. There's no question about it. But I think Enzo Fernandez today deserves a huge amount of credit. I thought he was everywhere. His passing was really good today, and some of the chances he created was just sublime, quite frankly. And we didn't do the final part, which was score a goal, which is a real shame. But I thought Enzo's ability to get amongst people, he tackles, he's snarly, he's aggressive, he's on the front foot a lot. Where he was lucky was he was booked in the second half, and then with about there was definitely 6 minutes of injury time left, maybe even slightly more. The ball came back to him after a free kick, and he kicked it away, not massively far, but he kicked it away enough. But I thought, there's your second yellow, and I thought we're going to get another red card. So again, discipline-wise, it's not a good look. If he got another red card, it would have been really, really worrying. Luckily, the referee took pity on him when he didn't give the yellow card, and we managed to keep our 11 players on the pitch. But I was seriously impressed with him today. That was a real grown-up performance from Enzo, and I like that. Moyes, just class. I mean, even at the last depths of the game, he's chasing balls down the left-hand touchline, winning free kicks, winning throw-ins, players coming up to him whilst he's on the floor and they're patting him on the back. They know how much he does for them and how much ground he gets around, and the work rate he puts in is just second to none. And I think the players all know that without him, things would look a lot different. So again, to that man, I mean, yeah, hats off to you, Moyes. I think on the wings is where it's getting interesting. I think Chris and I have both said about Neto being the grown-up winger, the one that kind of seems to be the first name on the team sheet when it comes to the 4 or 5 wingers we've got at the moment. But I would suggest that the last couple of performances have been a bit lacking. He's been going down cul-de-sacs quite a lot. I think he's a sort of player, though, that he might play next week and score 2 goals. And sort of from out of nowhere, he's definitely not someone that I'm disappointed with or anything like that. He did okay today. But I do feel that we have to start seeing Estevao at some point. And Garnacho, who in some ways, he was a bit grumpy when he came off. He seems to be that Madueke signing that we had last year, where every time he gets taken off, he's moaning and bitching. You can just see he's grumbling under his breath. He's not a happy bunny when he comes off as a sub. And his replacement in Jeremy Gittins, as Chris said, had a great chance, and he hit it probably a good 40 yards over the bar, which was just embarrassing. But I think Garnacho today played okay. He wasn't in the category of I can't take you off, which is I think he thought he was, and he needs to do a lot more. He occupies good space. Chelsea seem to sort of plan to have players in good areas of the field rather than someone making a darting run in behind. So say Arjen Robben years ago would be that player that would make a run in behind and you couldn't catch him when he was through 1v1. Our wingers now tend to occupy and hold space. You notice that we will somehow bring everybody over to one side of the field to isolate a winger, in which case today it was Garnacho quite a lot, and we would switch the ball to him. What's not happening from his point of view is he's not being dynamic enough. I don't think he's electric quick. I think he's quick enough, but I don't think he's mad quick. So going past players is quite difficult. Fullbacks do seem to be as quick as him. I don't think he's got massive amount of skills and tricks in his locker. But again, he can do enough. The jury's out on him for me. I quite like him when I see him play, but I'm still a little bit underwhelmed. And I think Neto has been a bit underwhelming in the last few weeks. And I think that certainly Estevao has got to start starting games. I've said this last weekend. I said it again today. He played against Wolves midweek, and he'll probably play against Karabag next week in the Champions League. But I think Estevao has got to start starting in the Premiership, because at the moment, I think we're crying out for a player like him, and I want to see more of him, because he's going to be world class. And the sooner he gets in the team, I don't think you're going to remove him. I think he's going to be that player that once he comes in, he's not going out again unless it's for an injury or a game where you don't need him, i.e. an FA Cup third round draw against Chesterfield or something. You're going to be taken out for those sorts of matches. But I think once he gets in this side, there's going to be no stopping him. So I think there's definitely improvement to be had on the wings, even though I think both players did okay today. Gittins, again, was okay when he came on. Estevao, again, was pretty useful. You can see they're looking to get in the ball every time it goes to him. As for the forward role, now this was interesting. So I thought João Pedro overall had a pretty good game. Although he definitely was at fault for not taking some of his chances. That's maybe even an understatement. He had the one in the first half when we were 1-0 up, and he smashed it straight down the middle, and obviously Vicario turned it over the bar. And then there's one that I can think of, near the end when Gittins knocked his ball over the bar, and he had the opportunity to square it to Gittins again, and he probably thought, I've just seen you miss that one, I'm not going to do it again. And I think he should show a little bit more finesse, and he just kicked it straight again at Vicario, who made another very good save. Although he did score a very good goal, and he took that very, very well, I must say, I just felt as though he was guilty of missing some chances today. But his hold-up play and the way he brought people into the game was very, very good. What was a bit concerning before we scored was I was watching him closely, and he was dropping deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, when you're the central line striker, it's very hard when he does that if the two wingers don't then go central. So he was dropping deep to receive the ball, but Garnacho and Neto were staying wide. And I felt like when he was winning the ball in midfield, he would then turn around and have no one to pass to. So that was a bit concerning. And I wasn't loving that. But we managed to kind of get through it. And once we scored our goal, he did sort of stop coming as deep as he was. So whether it was a tactical change or not in the second half, I'm not too sure. But he managed to sort of play on the shoulder a lot more of the defender, which he can clearly do. He just doesn't seem to like doing it. So the moment we get a Cole Palmer or Liam Delap back, which is hopefully next weekend now, we might see a different João Pedro, which would be great. But I suppose what is a little bit concerning for me is the way that he has chances now, and he had several in the first half. And instead of just clipping the ball into the corner like he was doing in the Club World Cup, these chances seem to be becoming a lot more difficult for him, which is a bit of a worry. So, yeah, I think he needs a little bit of help. I just think the addition of Liam Delap will make a massive difference to him. He's going to be the one that's going to be back soon. Obviously, Palmer is definitely injured for a while. So, yeah, I think he just needs a little bit of help up front. But I think overall, the game today was one of enjoyment for me. I don't often watch Chelsea Spurs games and be excited to watch them. I find them hard because you never want to lose to Tottenham. But today, I must say, even though we missed some gilt-edged chances even near the end, I did feel quite comfortable, and I never thought I'd say that. So, yeah, it was a weird game in a way because, say, Spurs didn't really offer very much. But like I say, you're always concerned they're going to launch one into the box, or, they get a corner near the end, or there could always be a penalty, VAR check or something. I just do think that teams are heavily reliant on that instead of trying to play good football. And what I will say about Chelsea is they do play good football, and I kind of admire them for not going down a road of just launching into the box and hope for the best. Arsenal might end up winning the league doing that this season. They score goals hand over fist by doing that, and even though there's nothing wrong with doing that, and they won't care a monkeys when they're lifting the Premier League trophy come May. I don't think it's sustainable forever, and I think that teams will slowly start to phase that out. It's just, at the moment, it's a bit of a trend, but it's a trend that is working.
I'm 32, juggling family, working full-time, and earning a bachelor's degree. At University of Phoenix, I earn career-relevant skills with every 5-week course. Skills I can use now, not just after graduation.
Earn skills in weeks, not years. Visit phoenix.edu.
On eBay, every find has a story. Like if you're looking for a vintage band tee, not just a tee, the band tee. You wore it everywhere until your ex stole it. Now you're on eBay. And there it is. Same tee from the same tour. The things you love have a way of finding their way back to you, especially on eBay. Shop eBay for millions of finds, each with a story. eBay, things people love.
You know how to make a great meal. And when it comes to the mess, Palmolive knows how to handle it. Palmolive Ultra removes up to 2.5 times the grease versus Dawn Non-Concentrated. Palmolive's most powerful formula instantly cuts grease, leaving you with sparkling clean dishes. Palmolive Ultra. Click or tap the banner to shop now or visit palmolive.com.
Yeah, a few more points on the game from me. Looking at the numbers, actually, the stats of the game, I think maybe I didn't even appreciate just how dominant Chelsea were. You kind of had the feeling, obviously, watching the game, but for those who haven't seen the stats, Spurs had a 0.05 XG, which I know isn't everyone's favourite number or metric, but it's the lowest they've ever had in Premier League history. They had 3 shots in total, only one of which were on target. And yeah, defensively, Chelsea just absolutely bossed them. It was a really, really good display when you look at those numbers. Chelsea themselves, by the way, had 3.68 XG, which is massive. 15 shots in total, 9 on target. And Tottenham goalkeeper Vicario was man of the match by a lot of metrics, a lot of those websites out there, which, to be fair, on the balance of the game was probably about right. I think on João Pedro, actually, I'm maybe a little bit different on his performance yesterday. I think not that you're saying he didn't play well, but I think I've always had a thing with strikers that I really don't mind the missing chances. What I worry about is when they're not getting chances. And I used to sort of hark back in the day to someone like Didier Drogba. His first couple of seasons at Chelsea, he was a bit hit and miss in front of goal, but he'd always get 2 or 3 good chances a game. And you kind of felt like one of these days he's just going to hit everything, is going to go in. And that's basically what happened in his 3rd season, where he scored like 30 plus goals. And I think my worry has always been with Chelsea strikers, if they're not getting many chances, like the same era, Shevchenko came in. Wasn't there Shevchenko was bad for Chelsea? He didn't miss that many chances. It was just he didn't get many. It was like he physically wasn't quite there to be in the positions to kind of do what he needed to do to get the chances. When he did get a chance, he was pretty lethal. But physically, he just wasn't as he once was. And I think with looking at someone like João Pedro yesterday, I much prefer seeing that. Like, he had 5 shots, 5 on target, should have come away with a hat-trick. Let's be fair, I'm sure he's really disappointed that he missed a couple of those good chances. But that's what you want him to be doing. He had 9 touches in the Spurs box. And as those who are probably getting bored of me talking about this stat, but it is one of my favourite now to look at with the strikers. How many times are they getting, touches in the opposition box? By comparison, against Liverpool, he had 1 touch in the Liverpool box in the whole game that he played against them. I think he played 80 minutes. So it just shows he was much more in the thick of it, where you want him to be. And if he continues to do that, he'll get chances. And another day, like you say, Joe, is a little bit more cool in front of goal, flicks those into the corners or over the keeper and those kind of things. But yeah, that's what I want to see from him. And in the interviews after the game, they asked him, do you prefer playing as a number 9 or as a number 10? And he said, happy with both, but if he's got Cole Palmer there, he prefers playing as a 9 because he's always going to find him and slip him through. And I can't wait to get Palmer back. I really can't wait to get him back. But yeah, just a really good performance, I thought. And some of the social media that has been going around Instagram, and I kind of like, I dive in and out of this stuff. I'm trying not to get too into it. I've kind of come off Twitter for obvious reasons, because it can be a little bit, it's just so up and down, isn't it, in terms of reactions. But some of the Chelsea players' social media stuff that I've seen has been very, very funny on Instagram. They've really enjoyed that victory, which is nice. I mean, it just shows that they know how important the game it is, what it means to the fans, and they're really kind of lapping it up. And a special mention to Romeo Lavia, who did a kind of a picture of him playing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but changed the location to training ground, which I thought was very funny. But yeah, some really good stuff. And we'll put a couple of bits on our Instagram, which is 1905 podcast, for those who don't yet follow us. But yeah, very, very enjoyable. And I think I really liked what you said there, Joe, in terms of a grown-up performance. That's what it felt like. And I think that's probably what we'll name the podcast, because it was maybe the part that we've not seen enough of this season in Chelsea. We've talked about it a little bit, but when we have won games, even take the Forest game, which was obviously 3-0, you look at it, looking back, it was a comfortable victory. Actually watching the game, it could have been 3-3. You know, it felt, even when we were 3-0 up, we were still giving them loads of chances. And this felt very different to that, didn't it? It just felt a lot more of a mature performance, really controlling. And yeah, maybe a just sign of they are growing. They are growing as a team. And when we're on it, we are a really good side. So let's hope we can kind of build on it and just keep the run going. I mean, Maresca talked about it after the game, and he has been saying this a lot. He said that's 6 wins in 7 games. And it doesn't always feel like it, because some of those haven't felt as comfortable as you might like. But do you know what? It's a really good run of form. And if we can carry on playing like that, we'll win plenty more. So I'll hand back to Joe. But yeah, still very, very happy with the night's work.
I think my last thoughts on the game, when I was watching it and the final whistle went and we won, I was just sort of thinking, they played well today, Chelsea. They defended with their lives. They made it difficult for Spurs. They also played some good football. They created plenty of chances. I enjoyed the performance. And then I just couldn't help but go back to last weekend and go, what the fuck happened there? You know, they've beaten Liverpool, Forest, then you lose at home to Sunderland before beating Spurs away. Like, you can't make those results up. It's so bizarre. And you want to be excited for these wins and stuff. And then you're kind of going, we're still not a serious team, though, because you can't afford to drop 3 points at home to Sunderland. Even if you draw that game, they've got to have the know-how and the awareness to go, do you know what? Sometimes a point is better than nothing. And it keeps your momentum going. Didn't play that great. Let's do that. But what does he do? You know, they end up piss-balling around at the back, given, you know, plenty of space, that Brian Brodbury to lay it back to the fullback who scored. And it sort of took a shine off what has been actually a really good month. They beat Wolves in the Cup. They've beaten Ajax in the Champions League. And you're going, they've had a really good set of results. But they are just so up and down. And just when you think they're about to maybe go on a little run, they drop 3 points at home to Sunderland. And it just doesn't make any sense. But they've made that Spurs team look really bang average today. And I think even Jamie Carragher on the comms couldn't help but give Chelsea lots of praise for their press and the way they created chances. And it just annoys me, because I just think to myself, they've really got a good amount of talent on that pitch and that field. They've just got to find some form of consistency. I said last weekend before the Sunderland match that I was sort of coming around to Maresca, and yes, there'll be some bumps along the road. I didn't expect it to be at home to Sunderland, I'll be honest with you. But like I say, they have had a really good month, and they go into, again, another run of games where you think, Karabag in the Champions League, difficult place to go because of the temperature and stuff over there. Good opportunity to win again. They've got Wolves at home, where you think, wow, that should be 3 points. Bloody hell. What will happen there? And then they've got Burnley away. And before then, going to like Barcelona and Arsenal. So you do really think that if they can start putting some performances against the poorer sides and putting them to the sword quite easily, you really do make the Arsenal games and that a bit easier on yourselves. Because if you don't win that game and it ends up being a draw, you don't mind. You sort of take that and move on. But at the moment, when they keep losing these silly games, every game against Arsenal and Liverpool and Tottenham, etc., becomes massive. And you're putting more and more pressure on yourselves. I just hope they can look at that game today and embrace it, enjoy it, and sort of go, do you know what? We've got to start putting some of these other teams away. We must start finding a way to play around these low blocks. And I think the addition now, fingers crossed he stays fit, of Liam Delap coming back next weekend, or certainly for the Carabao game as well, is that we've got a focal point and a threat up front. And I haven't really seen him play enough for Chelsea. But what I do see is a brilliant player. And I'm just so happy to have him back. The fact that we've beaten Spurs away without him, I think is impressive, because I thought that might bite us this weekend, particularly as we knew he was back against Wolves. I'm going to say it, I haven't wavered on my opinion of Maresca and this Chelsea team growing. I think that was a very, very grown-up performance today. And even though we have got the Indian sign over Spurs, it seems, I do kind of think that the manager is quite smart. And I do think that he's not a bad guy. And I think that with him at the helm at the moment, things are going in the right direction, even though there are performances sometimes that drive you absolutely potty. He's had some very good results this season. And I kind of stand by it that with him at the helm going into next season, all being well, that his ideas and what he's trying to implement into this team will bear fruit, because there's no doubt in my mind that the performances are becoming a bit more grown up. Yes, we've thrown the odd silly performance, but I think overall he's managing the Champions League campaign as well, and that's not an easy thing to do. You know, with the Conference League last year, which was nowhere near as good as this, obviously. So there is that going on in his brain as well. So I think he's actually getting the balance at the moment pretty good. Obviously, he won the League Cup again against Wolves. He's staying in that competition as well. So I think the fact that we're able to go to Spurs now and this sort of side and comfortably win, even though Chris and myself were a little bit nervous on the game, I think it just shows how far we've come and how far we've grown. Because halfway through that game today, I was thinking, do you know what? I think we're actually going to do this, opposed to last year going, I'm not sure. 2-0 down with 10 minutes gone, or whatever it was. You're thinking, oh, goodness me, where the bloody hell is this game going? But I know we turned it around, but I just felt today that a good 1-0 solid away win is actually more impressive than a 4-2, goal fest in a weird way. It's a real sign of the team growing up and maturing. I would definitely be disappointed again in this team this season. There's absolutely no question in my mind. We will throw in some absolute howling performance somewhere along the line. But what I would say at the moment is I think there are signs of growth. I think there are signs of the team starting to become one, and our injury list is reducing, and we're getting players like Lavia, who's playing more and more. Reece is playing more and more. Obviously, Delap is back. Palmer won't be a long way away. And before you know it, if they can just stay in the hunt, you just think to yourself, what sort of a season can they have? And I think that's the most exciting part of the game today for me, is that they've come through a very difficult game, being a local derby and a very heated derby, but we've also looked very solid at the back. And there's the first time I've said that for a long, long time. So fingers crossed that we can keep some of our important defenders fit, keep our central players like Caicedo and Enzo fit, Lavia, for example, and also get a striker or two back, because that's an area we've been seriously struggling in, but we have managed to still pick up points along the way. So, yeah, all in all, really happy to win today. It's a fantastic result. It's made my weekend, as I'm sure it's made your weekend, Blues fans. And fingers crossed we can go into the next 3 fixtures hoping and praying that we can put these sides to the sword quite easily and simply, and we can pick up a nice few points along the way before we play Barcelona and Arsenal. So, yeah, after a long week I had with football and my son's tour and all the rest of it, it's been a real sort of roller coaster of a week, and it came and it went really, really fast. There was lots of walking involved. There was lots of sharp turnarounds, etc. But wow, what a nice way to finish the weekend off. And I can go to bed tonight with a lie-in, which I don't normally have, and wake up tomorrow morning with a great big smile on my face and look forward to all the other results playing out. Yeah, well done, Chelsea.
Let's finish with a word then on the Qarabag game in midweek. I won't lie to you and pretend that I know a huge amount about Qarabag as a team, but I've done a little bit of research and looked at their kind of form this season. And as I mentioned in a previous pod, they've surprised a few people in the Champions League this year. They're 2 wins out of 3, just like us, with good wins against Benfica at Benfica and home to Copenhagen. They lost out last time to Athletic Bilbao, 3-1 in Bilbao, but not an easy place to go for anyone, to be fair. So they've been decent. They're decent. They're second in the domestic league after about 10 games, only lost 1, and it won't be an easy tie. I think that's for sure. I said in the previous pod that the weather will be awful. That was completely wrong, because actually it's, I think, a balmy 18 degrees. So it's actually a little bit warmer than it is in London, but the weather certainly won't be an issue. And yeah, an important night, I think, for Chelsea, because I talked about the need to get 12 to 15 points to qualify into the knockout stages. You really want to get to that 15-point mark to guarantee that you get automatic qualification. Get a win here, it's 3 in a row, and it puts us on 9 points, which actually puts us in a great spot with tougher games to come against the likes of Barcelona and Napoli and others. So it'll be interesting to see just how strong Maresca goes. I'll give you what I think he'll do and it's not far off probably what I would do. And I do think he'll probably rotate a lot. I think we might see a similar sort of lineup that we saw against Ajax. And his intention will be to keep some of these big hitters on the bench if he needs them. So the one that I would really hope he does is keep Sanchez in goal. And I'm sorry, Jorgensen, but recent performances, particularly that one against Wolves, have just filled with no faith in him at the moment. I just think if we are going to be making a few changes, which I'll talk about, I just wouldn't muck around in goal. I just think it's too risky at the moment with Jorgensen's confidence. But yeah, I'd like to see Sanchez in goal. I think we'll probably see Reece get a rest. A stat came out, by the way, after the Tottenham game that I think he's had 6 or 7 Premier League games in a row now where he's played 90 minutes, which is obviously the first time in years. And yeah, the way he celebrated, by the way, at the final whistle was just fantastic, wasn't he? He absolutely loved that. And you can just see what it means to him to be captain and what it means to him to be back playing again. But I'd be resting him certainly from the start today, on Wednesday, and have Gusto in there. I think Achimpong comes back in. He's been really good and was probably a little bit unlucky actually not to play against Tottenham. And I'd probably put Chalobah alongside him just for that little bit of experience and a big brother next to him. And then Hato comes in at left back for me again. Give Cucurella a little bit of a break, and again Hato's been growing in performances. I think Andre Santos comes in the middle. He was again probably unlucky not to get the game against Spurs, having played so well against Wolves. And I'd put Lavia alongside him, who came on and did his usual business, didn't he, against Spurs, and I think just needs game time. And then Esteval has to start, doesn't he? I think he's the easy one. You get him on the right-hand side, Gittins on the left, to try and build on that good performance at Wolves. I mentioned it earlier, still disappointed with his finish there at Spurs. If he'd got his knee over the ball and finishes that to make it 2-0, what does that do for his confidence in his Chelsea career to get that first Premier League goal as well? But hopefully that will come, and a good performance in the Champions League will do the world of good for him, for his confidence. I've got Delap up front. I think again we need a start for him. We need him to get minutes and to sort of make amends really for what he did at Wolves. And then who'd you play behind him? I'd probably like to see João Pedro. I'd like to see that João Pedro Delap partnership again. That would be my choice. But I think it'll be a Buonanotte. He just seems to like Buonanotte in these sort of Champions League games. And I think it'll probably be him. But yeah, time will tell. But I think I would expect a lot of changes. I'd expect 8 or 9 changes, which is kind of what I've suggested there, to feel like he's got enough and he's got a lot in the bench if he needs them. And then obviously you're getting ready for another big Premier League game against Wolves, who will have a new manager, or certainly at least a temporary manager in place by the time we play them, as they got rid of their manager today. So often the way, isn't it, with Chelsea seem to play teams and new managers. So that certainly doesn't make it any easier. But we'll talk about that game later in the week when we come back to talk about the Carabao game. But yeah, big game again. Chelsea back in the Champions League. Let's go and get that first away win back in the Champions League, and hope we can get up to 9 points and put ourselves in a really good spot. But we'll be back to reflect on that and much more. And remember, every little thing's going to be all right. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.